Hello, everyone, and welcome to Soul Channel, a place for seekers to gather, cultivate clarity, raise consciousness, normalize spirituality, and change the world. I am so excited for today's episode. We are going to welcome Cassie Clouser, the brand mythologist, who is absolutely one of my favorite people on the planet. Not only is she a brilliant artist in multiple mediums, but she is the author of my website. And I can speak from experience that when it comes to talking about being fully expressed, we are going to the master, because Cassie is one of the most gifted humans at being able to communicate how to drop into your soul and help you realize what's deep inside within you. So, Rediscover Yourself, a path to fuller self-expression. We chatted a little bit before we started today, and I'm going to let Cassie introduce herself. Cassie.
Thank you, Teresa, who is also one of my favorite people on the planet. I remember the first time I met you on Zoom, I heard your voice, like that was the first thing. And I asked, where is that voice coming from, right? Because you have all of these screens up and I had to find you, like who was talking, and I connected with you right away, even before we formally met. So thank you for introducing me and for that really beautiful introduction. So professionally, I go by the Brand Mythologist, where I provide branding, graphic, and website design services for conscious businesses who are on some type of revolutionary path. So it's a mix of the arts and business and courage and full bold expression. But as Teresa mentioned, design is not, it's not my identity. There's a larger background and a larger purpose that I have, in that I have always been so involved in the arts and very much like a director type of archetype or personality in the arts, whether it's directing choirs or piano performances or musical theater, or even doing some art pieces and, helping to guide children. And really behind the scenes, if any of you are familiar with astrology or the zodiac, I am very much a Leo personality. So I'm a Leo, and it's very much a soulful approach to the Leo. So not the stereotype of look at me type of thing, which is, it's not necessarily bad, but there's an arc to the I am. There's an arc to who I am and the expression of that I feel really grateful that throughout my life that I get to go on that journey, as well as to help other people tap into their deep parts of self and to more fully express that. So that whenever I'm working in a business context, I found that hidden gift where people will talk to me at the end of the process and say, you know what, this actually really affected me personally, and I didn't realize that I was going to start tapping into my more authentic expression personally in my personal life. And so this context today is not business. It's very at the personal level. And I'm very grateful that I get to dive in with you all here in that context, because when I wake up in the morning, that's one of the top things on my mind, is how am I going to fully live this day? So thank you for letting me introduce myself.
Thanks, Cassie. And that was my experience as we not only worked together, but became great friends, is with every iteration of my expression. And for all of you who know me, you know that everything I do comes from the soul and is divinely guided. And it's vital to be able to mine, to tap into that expression and have it fully realized. So Cassie, take us through some of the ways that you're able to bring this full expression through, and maybe some of your experiences or experiences working with people.
Mhm. Okay, so what's really important to begin with is understanding that self-expression or understanding the self is actually a very personal journey, and it's going to mean different things to different people. So it's first identifying with a person, what does it mean to you to know yourself more, to express yourself? So for some people, it's an internal thing. Who am I? And that path, right? Where on the inside, it's not very clear, right? Or it's developing. In another case, you might have someone who really knows who they are on the inside, but it's the externalization of that there's some kind of block. Or, you can have someone who really knows who they are, but really they have a PR problem. So, and that's kind of like a joking way to say, right, that you know who you are, but there's something that's stopping you, or that it's about the perception of you, that you know who you are, but you feel like people aren't perceiving you the way that you perceive yourself. Another aspect of self-discovery might be a more spiritual path. And that's going to be different for every person because we all have a slightly different map of how the world works. Like when we get into more like existential type ideas, where did we come from? Who are we really on a cosmic level? We have different flavors of that. And so that's actually going to influence how you discover who you are. Another thing that people mean when they want to express themselves is actually has to do with skills and capacities. Let's say I really know that I'm an explorer, but I've not developed those capacities. I haven't developed the confidence to go out into the world and start exploring in a smart and joyful way. Or like, I really know I'm an artist, but I haven't taken any classes yet. So identifying, okay, is what's missing or what needs to be developed, is that more based on, I feel like I haven't, developed my gifts yet, versus I don't know what it is in the first place. So I think one thing that everybody in this room, or if you're watching later, can do right now, if you have paper and pencil, or if you just want to do this in your mind, is to write down what being yourself or expressing yourself means. What is it that you would like to be or to do more fully? And if it's an I don't know, that's okay. That's part of it, right? It's like, I want to discover there's something unknown about me. I feel it deep within me, and I want to see what that is. Some people might be on a more spiritual journey, right? Like, what does this sacred version of myself look like walking this earth? How do I bring, right, terms more like the higher self, the soul self, the sacred self, the eternal self? That's another piece that I often find. So just take a second and can write down your intention, because really the self is so wide.
Thank you, Cassie, because I don't think that I've ever, you're evoking in me these internal conversations to mine more deeply into what wants to be expressed through me. And you're giving us all of these containers with which to do this deep inquiry, this journey, right? This journey into a place of self-knowing. And I think too, what occurs for me, it's also about the self-confidence and self-trust to step into it, right?
Mhm. Yes. I'm going to go ahead and share something. I'm going to share a slide. So if any of you are interested in psychology, whether you're in therapy or not, you might be familiar with this. If not, I'll go over this. So this is the levels of self-awareness. This diagram or chart called the Johari window. Now, I know it looks like it should be pronounced maybe a little bit more exotically, but it was developed by psychologists Joseph Luft and Harrington Ingham. So it's based off of the combination of their names. And so it's this really interesting chart about you, about yourself, where if you think about this like a graph and combinations of things, we have this column, meaning things I know about myself. We have the right column, things that I don't know about myself. And then we go to the rows, like the y-axis here, things they know about me. So they means that, you know, your external world, your external people, and things they don't know about you. And so what this creates then is these 4 areas where you have things that you know and things that everybody else knows is more of that open public persona, right? It's out in the open. Things I don't know about myself, but maybe somebody else sees is going to be a blind spot. Things that I know about myself, but they don't know, something hidden, something that I just keep to myself. And then things I don't know and things they don't know is the unknown, the mystery, and can be like insight from greater forces, can be the subconscious, the cosmic Gulf Stream, right? Some of the most exciting realizations about myself come when I'm not trying for it. And all of a sudden something just drops in, some synchronicity happens, and it just blows my mind, right? So here, if you take a look at what you wrote down for today, to see if it fits in any of these 4 areas. Is it something about yourself that you want to express that you know everybody knows and you just want it more amplified? You want it bigger and fuller? Is it something that's hidden, something that you haven't disclosed, but maybe there's some type of fear, or maybe you didn't get positive feedback for it as you were going through your life. Life didn't affirm it, but it's there and you're ready to share it, right? What's blocking what's hidden, right? What would give the confidence to you to start disclosing this? Is it something that's more of a blind spot where you just don't know, but you feel like there's something there and you need help from the external to help see you deeply and to draw that out from you? Or is it this deep desire to be open and to channel through from the unknown and the cosmic and just flow through me now? What is it that I need to see? And all of these can be more identity-based, or they could be capacity-based, like we talked about before, skills, or developing, you know, what do I need to develop in myself in order to express what I've written down? So this is something, so this is, Teresa, when you were asking before, like one of the ways that I help people. So this is a very common diagram that I use. So I could keep going on this, but I'm going to pause the share there and see if anything comes through.
I absolutely love context because it allows us to form direction. Okay, I've identified the area in which I want to mine self-expression.
Mhm.
And for me, because of who I am, because I'm a channel, self-expression is self-realization. It's not simply this is who I am. It is, this is the being that I take into the world. This is how I self-express. This is how I self-realize. And it's a continuous journey. So how do we move from identifying the area? Yeah, thank you. The area that we want to focus in and taking that into actionable steps. What are the things that we can do to help us move forward, Cassie?
Mhm. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen again. I'm going to bring up the moon phases. So one simple sort of binary question to ask when beginning something like that is to think about the self-realization journey as a cycle. I've heard that feedback, especially from women. I'm sure that also applies with men as well, but this is just the context that with women, we think and feel through life very cyclically. So in this phase, let's say, I want to externalize what I feel inside, but I'm frustrated, or I feel blocked, or I feel numb, or I feel nothing, taking a look at something like the phases of the moon and not necessarily asking, oh, what's the moon in right now, literally for us, but more in the world, in the internal world of myself. What phase am I in terms of budding, growing, dying, like the cycle of life in terms of my realization? So in some cases I've had, and this happened to me, happened with me, especially at the end of 2023, December and going into the winter solstice. And I just felt like, oh, I wish I could just express more. I've got this next level of me that is happening. But asking the question, okay, what phase am I in? Am I in a phase that is budding and growing, or am I releasing? Is something dying within me, metaphorically? We setting that intention of like vivid health for everybody here, but metaphorically, what needs to die? And I think that even in the little picture, in the smaller pictures of the day to day, when you have a moment that's uncomfortable or when you're dissatisfied with yourself, ask, what do I need to release? Or even if you don't know what that is, to just say, release, release. Because whenever I'm in that state of dissatisfaction and I haven't released, that true soul message just waits to come through until I do. And I know that my state and my energy, my level of openness usually allows the externalization, the level of flow to take a small step in the direction. But the funny thing is when I'm truly open and, I've released, I'm at that point where I might not really need to express myself. I might not really need to be better at something or to, so much thinking about we have this limited time on this life and I have to do everything I was meant to do in this moment. But really just being there, it's kind of a paradox that's when it flows through. So I'll give you an example of one of my stories of how I'm self-realizing and evolving after describing this, right? I felt like this was really important to go over, that sometimes it's actually just not even the time, right? To push and to rise, like maybe it's the time to release. So let's say metaphorically, we
Hey,
move
Cassie,
out of, yes,
can you stop sharing and then everybody can see? Yeah, there we go.
yeah,
Perfect.
okay. So, using those cyclical metaphors, let's say, okay, I'm not in a nighttime metaphorically, I'm in a phase where I'm ready to rise. Okay, so I've identified that. I'm in a morning, I'm rising. And so I have a couple of ways that I do things, and I usually use more of a slight edge strategy than big, huge leaps. But if you are someone who is a leaper, then you leap. So finding your style of how significant of a jump you make is very important. But for me, I do slight edge type behaviors all the time. So for me, where I'm comfortable, where I was born into this life was very much a harmonizer, very much a fairness and equality for everybody, and everybody is heard and everything is fair and we're all equal, right? And I don't want to disturb anybody. I don't want to interfere. I don't want to impose myself on anyone. It was kind of like this vision of I was walking through life in a museum and I wasn't allowed to touch anything because I knew how much power I had. If I didn't know how to use it well, then I was going to break something. But then after a while, this took many years to realize that I made the museum in my head. I made the museum. I made the museum to protect myself, to protect others in my head. And one day I had this like more of a meta vision of, whoa, like I did this, I made this. And I can choose to dissolve, to break everything if I want. I can break all the pieces in the museum and allow through what's going to come through, because developing a level of self-trust is so important. And like, if you don't trust yourself, you're not going to express yourself because you're keeping everything safe, right? So when you realize that deep inside you have this power, you can feel it, but you've tamped it down to keep everything safe. When you get to the point where I really trust these hands. I trust my heart. And I know that if I start interfering and start imposing, start interacting and changing those words, right? Start playing in the world and start speaking, that, yeah, okay, I might make some mistakes. I might make someone upset. Someone might not like it that I've changed, that I'm showing up stronger. But that self-trust then allows you to start expressing that power in can be small or big ways. So like I was saying, how I came into this world very much a harmonizer with a huge voice that I tamped down. I had a big voice as a kid. I was such a ham. And then something happened where I won't go into the details because we have 5 hours, but something happened where I closed my voice, and that created all sorts of issues, emotionally, physically, illnesses of keeping in this big power, So realizing that my arc is, for those who, again, are familiar with astrology, my arc is toward Aries. Like my, that means, very fiery, very leader, very director type of personality, someone who really speaks with authority. But all along the way, trusting myself that I'm going to do this with love, and that I'm not really ever just one thing. I'm not just an archetype, that I'm more like a bunch of little dials of different qualities, that whenever I'm in a situation, oh, is this an opportunity for me to turn up my voice? And it doesn't mean I have to turn it up to 10. It doesn't mean I have to walk into a room and go big, but maybe it's just I turn it up a little bit. So that means, so a practical way with that is that knowing with my creative gifts how big they are, when I'm in, especially in work situations, if I'm working with a team, I've been hesitant to tell people what to do, to really direct. And, I have these thoughts of like, oh, whoa, like I know exactly what to do here, but I don't want to step on any toes. Right? So it's like adjusting the dials so that I can lovingly come in and show this, this Aries, this fiery, heart-centered leader. And then I ask myself, what can I do in this moment that's going to express that well, but it's in tune, it's nuanced. And I feel like that a lot of people here in this room can appreciate the nuance as part of the maturing process in the self, right? When we're young, we're trying to figure out who we are, and we kind of turn on light switches on and off, like, or I can imagine like this big power lever just going, and making big mistakes, or totally turning it off, right? I don't know how to be this at 5, so I'm not going to be it at all. So, so that's an example personally. And I have another visual that is kind of cool. It's kind of like a timeline exercise that I can share in terms of taking you through your own, taking in elements of what you are and bringing it up into your timeline. So is that cool if I share that?
Yeah, let's first, I really
Yeah.
want to honor where we just went. It was huge. The information that you provided to everybody and the experience that you shared, I want everybody to receive that. And here's why. Each and every one of you who's watching now or in the future is brilliant, beautiful, and powerful. And what Cassie's talking about, how do you start to do the inner mining to reveal those places within you in whatever form serves you, whether it's the quiet 2 out of 10 voice, whether it's the 0 out of 10 because you're here just to spread love and joy, whether you're the 8 out of 10 because you're here to be that leader, whatever that is, embrace that within yourself, acknowledge you have that within. And as Cassie said, step into confidence and trust. And you take baby steps, right, Cassie? You don't have to go all out all at once. Take those baby steps to bring yourself into that place. I think, Cassie, what you shared was so rich and full and beautiful, that I wanted to make sure that we highlight that for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Teresa. Yes, well, I could see myself. There's a whole point of this event, right? I could see myself focusing on myself, and so I wanted to shift it. Um, and um, that reminds me of that, me sharing very personally what happens in my inner world that's valuable. So even even me, who I guide people through this, like there are these moments of like, oh, like, and I'll just step back, you know. But you know, there's a quote that I love, and when I was sharing this event, I couldn't find who authored it, and that is, I awaken for the whole. I awaken for all. And in that way, we're stepping out of the, oh, it's my behaviors and my acts of service that are going to make me a better person or make the world a better place. And, you know, instead of that anxiety around like, I have to do as much as I can, that us each awakening is, it just organically does that for the world. And really what, in that big picture, what we're talking about is our unified consciousness waking up and loving itself. So
Beautiful.
thank
Thank
you.
you.
So, okay, and sort of shifting the camera lens back on each of you. So I'm actually going in a different direction, so that's okay. So you love stories, I'm assuming, some type of story, like there's a story or mythology that you love, and within great story writing, there's a main character. There are usually many characters. And in really fulfilling stories, you have characters that are relatable, even if it's in a magical world. There's something very human about them that you relate to. They're not perfect. They don't start out perfect. They make mistakes. They run into villains. Um, they lose. Um, they have very human-like desires, right? But what's really great about fulfilling stories is that each character, or many of them, will have a character arc. So think about one of your favorite characters in a book or in a movie or a TV show or fable your grandma told you, and see if you can find a character that has some type of arc. What were they like in the beginning? What did they have to learn? And what deep soul self within them rises at the end? What is their maturing process? And it's really important to know that it's not, most of the time, it's not comfortable for them to go from A to B for their character arc. So, you know, when the phoenix rises from the ashes, there's the fire, right? And so there's, you know, there's that balance in life of being able to feel and accept the pleasurable things and to accept the uncomfortable things. And are you going on a ride in life where you're sort of receiving, like life is doing it for you, which it will. Life will do your character arc for you. Or are you a little bit of a partner with life or with source, right? Like, okay, we're going to do this together. And I see that there are little ways that I can start getting out of my comfort zone and start pushing myself a little bit gently, right? Or opening gently. So you've written down maybe your character, right? So imagine that you are the main character in a book right now. So your life is the book. Your life is the movie. So there are a couple of things that I might ask. So there's the big picture question is, what's your character arc? There's so many, you know, I expressed mine, right? So from more shy, not really owning my gifts, not trusting myself, deferring to other people to tell me what to do, basically being very, my arc is sheep to lion, especially in the arts, in the context of the arts, especially. So what's your character arc? Then, another really fun small picture question. Okay, again, you're the main character in your book, in your movie. Now, I want you to step out into a different perspective where you are both the main character and you're the reader or the viewer. And in that witness perspective, what is it that you so wish that the main character would do next? Oh my God, that gives me goosebumps. What do you, oh my gosh, I so see what this character can do next. Or what are possibilities, right? Maybe it might come in strong. It might be, oh, well, kind of like an interactive video game, like they could go here and they could go there and they could go there, and sort of choose and then say, okay, is there some version of this that I can do right now? What is something small and easy? And those moments, right? And then it takes a little bit sometimes of raw, like it takes a roar, an inner roar sometimes. Like I will feel kind of, oh, like, okay, I love my imagination and I love being in here, but there's physical resistance to bring it through to the external and to actually do the next thing. So what I'll do is either I'll ask for energy or for guidance from external, whether it's a person or being or source that I'm praying to, or it's just the most inner depths of my loins. And I say, I'm going to be fully present here and I'm going to rise into this next moment. And even with little things, like doing little things different for me sometimes take a lot of energy because it's not practiced. Oh, this is a new thing the character is doing. So, that's very interesting because I found that sometimes these shifts that we want can often come down to energy or beliefs about our energy. Well, I know exactly what I do. If I only had enough energy, that's been something I've said to myself over and over and over again. And so this contrast of difficulty and easiness, I'll go back and forth. Like sometimes it'll be, oh, I'm gonna challenge myself. This is a challenge moment and I'm gonna roar into it. And sometimes I'll do the flip where I actually have a little display screen in my head where I choose the difficulty level of how my day's gonna go. And then I go, oh, today I need easy mode. And I do this little drop down and I select easy mode. And I'm like, okay, just like how I thought I had created the museum, right? What mode am I going to do today? And sometimes I'll do like intermediate, or sometimes I'll bump it up and I want a challenge and push myself. So there's, that is a very like context-free way to start looking about, level of difficulty and energy required in influencing your behavior. Oh, preferences, like and dislike, interfere with the energy. Yes. And so that's Nancy.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Do you mind sharing more about what you mean, Nancy?
Yes, okay, thank you. When I have reactivities, but we always, doesn't matter the trigger, I notice I ask shortly because I don't want to spin and make story. It's often related to preference, what we like or dislike, or it should be that way or should be that way, or it's not like this, it should be like this. And also it's fear. It has fear to it too. So that interfere with the energy. So I notice then when I catch it, they come back.
Yes.
The energy is better during the day. As soon as there is more question or something that I don't like, or it should be that way, it's not that. Anyway, that shift, it grabs the energy. So it's just what I wanted to highlight. Thanks.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing that, because what that brings to me is the concept of behavioral flexibility, which doesn't really necessarily point to who you deeply are, but it's more of like how you explore who you are. And so the less flexibility that we have and the more attachment that we have in thinking who we are and what we like and what we don't like, then we're not going to get as much feedback from new ways because we're in a cycle, you know? So, and even sometimes we think we might be doing something different, but it's really the same thing with a different mask, if that makes sense. So one thing that is, I think, really important with behavioral flexibility is taking some moments where we're not so strongly attached to an outcome, but more of like, how can I be open and flexible right now so I can adapt in a moment to what I need to be? And so one phrase that will come to me is try anything different. Let's just practice being flexible today. And try doing something that maybe isn't so offensive. Maybe it's not like a 10 dislike, but maybe it's a small dislike that I've never tried. That's important. Like, I've not tried it. So one example is for me is I've had this sort of kind of moralistic opposition to video games. Like, my kids play video games all the time, and like lots of people I know play video games, and I had this really like, no, what happens to your consciousness, and what are you doing with your time? And so one day I just said to myself, do anything different. And I got a video game, and there I am, this 37-year-old woman who doesn't like video games, playing a video game. And I played for hours. And I got lost in this world. And I thought, oh my gosh, I love this. And one of my kids comes over, and they know I'm playing video games, and they're like, Mom, you are forgiven. Because of all the judgments, because I want to keep them in line, and keep them productive. But here I am. And what happened was there were things that I discovered about myself in the world, you know? And, but then the other side of that is not staying fixed, right? That higher level of flexibility is that in each moment, how am I flowing and adapting? And then you might discover things you didn't know about yourself.
I love that. And cultivating that inner curiosity to look at something in a new way, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the seat of moving through preferences, because preferences are often determined from a very young age or from a judgment, and you can't judge something and be curious at the same time. They can't coexist, right? So by being curious and taking steps towards what you like or dislike, it allows you to cultivate a perspective. And maybe, I love your dials. I use the same analogy. Maybe turn the dial just a little bit and say, well, maybe I'll try this for 3 degrees and see if it's as offensive, or if I love it and am committed to moving in that direction. It opens doors, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It gives you a playground rather than a prescribed destination, a fixed destination.
Yes.
Awesome. By the way, I feel the same way about video games.
Yeah. People get lost for hours.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think that that's an interesting idea because, I was talking about the self-leadership path, the self-trust, and being intentional in each moment of, like with the dials, what level am I in very much, how would I phrase it? You get these moments in life where you just know, who you are in the moment, you know what needs to be said, you have a bit of openness. So I think that even when we're in those moments of complete knowing, having some openness, the humility dial, least up a little bit. That are we in a moment where, okay, it's time for me to roar, so to say, at any point on the dial? Or, so that's from inside to outside. Or am I in a moment where it's actually important for me to open and receive and explore in this moment? So I'm going to turn down that inside to out dial, and I'm going to turn up that outside to in. That's very a yin yang, another cyclical way of thinking, like what is needed in this moment from me. So I'm thinking about where to go from here, because I have other ways or exercises to share, but I feel that maybe hearing more from who's here, like me kind of turning down my inside to out dial.
Yeah. Does anybody have any questions or because we want to start wrapping it up, but I'd love to hear your perspective in the audience on some of what's been shared today. I know for me, it's evoked a desire to be more curious, a desire to step back and listen and receive what wants to be known, not only intuitively, but by cultivating that relationship without. What is the world reflecting back to me that it wants me to know? Opening that door. And then based on where I am in my moon phase, which I just love that tool as a way of gauging where I'm at with my receptivity. How do I want to respond? Am I deep within in the shadow side? Which shadow is not negative. I just want to say that's necessary for evolution. Or am I coming into the light, reflecting out more of that internal state? Where am I as the new information comes into my awareness, and what do I want to cultivate?
Yes. Thank you. Would anybody else like to share anything about like what phase you're in, or your intention, or your character arc that you might have identified?
Wow, a shy group. Never happens.
What? Say that
Julie?
again?
it would just take me forever to explain.
Oh,
So I gotta
I
like,
understand.
Dina, would you like to share?
Sure. My apologies, I joined late, but I would say that I'm reflecting on my character arc, moving from quiet observer to quiet leader. And I feel that I am in a phase of expansion, but it's taking both the inside out and the outside in and balancing those dials as I move forward and take in the information around me and kind of build and expand and support kind of my own being is who I am, or stepping into, and then being able to balance the care of others around me too as we grow forward together.
Thank you, Dina. Yeah, I love how you're expressing, it's like stepping out of the stereotypes of things, right? That a leader isn't always the same kind of flavor or the same dial settings, right? That a quiet leadership can be just as powerful. I remember in training a little bit to teach little kids music in a music class, when you have a bunch of babies and toddlers and 5, 6-year-olds, like how how to manage the room. And one of the things that they taught us was actually like leaning in and whispering. And you would start whispering, and then all of a sudden the little kids were like, oh, what is this? Right. So my state of that quiet, but there's a big power in there, right? So I love how that nuance came through for you.
Thank you, Dina. That was brilliant. And I love the level of introspection, understanding where you're at. And I think of anything, that's what I want everyone to take away from today. Where are you? How do you need to be supported to fully self-express? As Cassie stated in the beginning, do you need one-on-one? Do you need group? Do you need time by yourself? Or a little bit of all? Where are you and what do you need? And give yourself permission to receive it. Receive it. Cassie, tell us all the places that we can find you and how people can reach out to you.
Yes. So I have my business, like I mentioned in the beginning, that though this frame here wasn't a business frame, but if you want to reach out to me, I think actually the best way is through email right now. I don't have any upcoming events, but if you're interested in connecting with me personally, like I'm not I'm not putting any offer out there or anything like that. Like this is very much personal connection. So
Yeah.
I'll actually even I'll put my email in the chat so that way it's not on YouTube, but you
Yeah.
you um
and you can find her at thebrandmythologist.com, spelled exactly the way you would think. And Cassie, thank you. I'm so grateful. A, I get to spend time with you. That's the selfish part. And B, that I get to share you with the world, because I think you're amazing. You're incredibly gifted. You're wise and you're generous with your wisdom. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Teresa. Thank you all of you here today, and being here with us and with yourself. And yes, always beautiful to have Teresa, both of our voices in harmony in the same room. It's a very joyful experience, and same with all of you.
All right. We'll look forward to seeing everybody again very soon.